Hey, divers, Alec, Peirce from Sea Hunt Remembered. Another episode about my Sea Hunt collection. Now, I want to explain that this particular item technically is not Sea Hunt memorabilia. It is what I would classify as related to Sea Hunt, and as part of of my personal collection of my Sea Hunt collection, part of the personal items that I have, and I have a lot of personal items that were related to Lloyd Bridges. Silly things like I have a gas receipt. Apparently, he got his car filled up with gas at a gas station in LA one day and got the receipt and signed the bottom of the receipt, and I have that receipt, the original receipt. I know that sounds silly, but that's who I am. I'm silly. I'm crazy about Sea Hunt, and lots of people are, so don't laugh at us. What I'm trying to do here with this playlist is relive and help to keep the memory of Sea Hunt alive. Not really that hard because so many people remembered it was the biggest, hottest TV show ever for its time in the late 50s and early 60s. But I have a lot of stuff like this. These are personal items. Let me explain what I mean by personal items. These are items that, while not directly related to the show, are certainly related to Lloyd Bridges and Mike Nelson and to scuba diving. So I say, hey, that's good stuff to have in my collection. This is pretty neat. I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. I'm very, very proud to have this. A little surprised to get it, actually. Anyway, some time ago, I was approached by somebody, and he said, I have a picture that you might be interested in. Now, when he said that you might be interested in, I assumed it had to do with Sea Hunt, because this happens quite often. People call me up from all over the world, and they say, hey, I got a Sea Hunt item. Do you want it? And sometimes they send it to me. Sometimes if it's got some value to it, I'll pay them for it, because I'd like to do that. I don't want anyone to find out later that they gave me something and there's a whole lot of money involved. In most cases, there isn't very much money involved. In some cases, there is. Anyway, this gentleman called up and said, I got something that might be of interest to you. And I said, okay, what is it? Well, it's a picture that hung in Mike Nelson's, Lloyd Bridges, that hung in Lloyd Bridges' Malibu beach house. Okay, I didn't even know that Lloyd Bridges had a Malibu beach house. I knew where they lived, and it was very, very close to the ocean, very close to Malibu. I assume they just drove down there because he used to spend a lot of time in the water. The whole family, Dorothy and the three kids, they always were swimming and diving sometimes. And I just assumed that they drove down to the beach, but apparently they had a Malibu beach house. Like, hey, that'd be pretty neat. I'd love to have that. I wanted it for myself anyway. If it became part of my collection, so much the better. So anyway, this picture showed up finally at my place, and I took a look at it, and I was really impressed. So then I started researching it. Son of a gun. This actually is a pretty neat picture. It's pretty neat. Let me talk about it for just a minute. So there's the picture. This is a picture that the chap sent to me. As you can see, it's black and white, of course. This picture actually is from one of the Sea Hunt episodes. This is a promo picture, not a common picture. Some of the promotional pictures from Sea Hunt were very, very common. You can get them quite easily. A lot of collectors have them. This is not a very common picture, but it is obviously a picture taken from one of the Sea Hunt episodes. So you can see Mike Nelson there. He's got his famous B4 mask on, all the equipment, the watch, the whole thing. And it's a very nice picture. It's a good size. It's about 18 by 24, and it is framed. This is the original frame. This is the frame that I received it in. And you see it's just a very, very simple wooden frame, banged together, a few nails, a little bit beat up, okay? And the picture is on a piece of paper around the outside, just stuck on with some paper glue. I won't turn it around for you, but trust me, it's held in with some nails, just held in place with some nails, a piece of wire, so it can be hung up somewhere. And in this particular case, this picture, just as you see it, hung in the beach house that Lloyd Bridges had, and that was used by himself, his family, his friends, and so on. Anyway, let me show you some more information I collected about this particular picture. First of all, I was able to get this article. Now, this article came from Skin Diver magazine. I spotted this, took a bit of time, bit of work. Skin Diver magazine, February 1962. And this was an article about Lloyd Bridges, Mike Nelson, Sea Hunt, whatever you want to call it, whatever. An article about that. Now, for interest's sake, let me tell you that Sea Hunt was featured on 6 Skin Diver magazines. Skin Diver was the biggest magazine of its day. 6. By far the most of any personality. I think Jacques Cousteau was on 2, possibly 3. Sea Hunt, Lloyd Bridges, Mike Nelson was featured on 6. I have those issues, of course, I do. And this particular one, there was an article about Lloyd Bridges and about the fact that he is actually a water person. You know what I mean? He's into water sports. And his family as well. His family is all involved and so on. So there are some personal pictures on here. There's quite a few. There's a picture of Mike jumping in the water. There's a picture of Mike with his boys and various things. But look at right here. I don't know if you can zoom on this one picture. Kevin, can you get this one picture right here? And this is a pretty interesting picture because this is not, by the way, this is not Lloyd Bridges. This is not Mike Nelson. This is somebody, a friend of the family, perhaps. I don't know who it is exactly. But this is a picture of somebody, and maybe a diver because he's carrying a scuba tank. He's bringing a scuba tank into a building. If you look very closely, you can see it in the back, in the background, you can see a car parked on the street outside. In fact, that car is very, very close to the doors. There's not much of a sidewalk, not much of a front yard for this particular building. The car is very close to these doors. And you see the doors as well. It's a double doors. Looks like maybe a garage or a shed maybe of some sort. Double doors that open outwards onto the street. And there's a car parked right outside. And there's some notes on here. And these notes were put in here by Lloyd Bridges. And these notes talk about the fact that this was their beach house. The actual address is on there as well. And one of his friends is bringing in a scuba tank to be filled for some scuba diving. So there's a picture of the beach house in which this picture hung back in 1960, 58, 60, 61, 62. Now that's 60 years ago, a long time ago. So I got to thinking, my gosh, and that's pretty neat. I wonder if that beach house, I wonder if the Bridges beach house at that address is still there today. So I did a little bit of research. Yep, still there. There's a picture of it. Right on the PCH in Malibu. I'm going to try to hold that still, Kevin. How does that work for you? And you can see that next door there's a brick structure, and then there is this gray wooden beach house. That particular part of Malibu Beach in the 50s and 60s was a cottage community. It wasn't the multi-millionaire star residence area that it is now. It was a cottage community. That's what people that lived in LA, and they would buy a little cottage down there, and then they had a place on the water to get away from the city and enjoy the ocean, you see. And this is pretty typically, this is a wooden cottage. It's very, very narrow, but it is quite long. And maybe makes sense because even in those days, property on the PCH, on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu would not be cheap. So you would keep the frontage small, but have a long beach house or long cottage or house leading down to the beach itself. So this is pretty narrow. There's a front door you can see, and over on this side you can see that there's a wide area here. It looks like a garage perhaps. Let's take a close-up. Look at that. There's the garage. There's the front door, a couple of lights and a doorbell. Brick house next door. Oh, there you go. There is double wooden garage doors. The same double wooden garage doors in this article from the 1962 Skin Diver magazine. Here we're looking from the inside out, and there are the garage doors on the outside. And you can see right here how close the doors are to the street. Look, there's a car right there. So if you can imagine that this car, 62 Valiant, I think, parked right outside. This guy opens up the garage door, takes it. That's the same building. This is, in fact, Lloyd Bridges beach house. And you can see I even went so far as to find eventually an aerial photograph. And there's an aerial photograph. Here's the PCH. This is today, by the way. This is modern. The PCH, Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. And the houses, they're much bigger now. A lot of them are brick. But there's one house, for some reason, I'm not sure why. I don't know if the bridge is still on it or not. For some reason or not, this house is still there. You can see it gray and blue. And you can see it's very, very narrow on the street. And quite long. Right on the beach. And there's the water. Pretty neat. I think it's neat anyway. To have this picture from Lloyd Bridges, Mike Nelson's picture of Mike Nelson that hung in Lloyd Bridges Malibu beach house. The picture from Skin Diver magazine of one of his friends being in a scuba tank. To me, it's pretty neat. Certainly, I think, anyway, it's part of a sea hunt collection. Mike Nelson, that's sea hunt. I think so anyway. So I hope that's been interesting for you. Maybe those of you who live in that particular area and you're sea hunt fans, you might want to drive by, see if you can find that particular spot. It's not hard to do. It should be easy to spot from this. Bit of an interesting story from sea hunt, related to sea hunt, about Mike Nelson, Lloyd Bridges, and his family. I hope you enjoy that. Talk to you more about sea hunt. I have lots more to show you, and I'm going to try to keep them short and interesting. Talk to you soon. Alec, Peirce, Sea Hunt Remembered.